Hi everyone. So we are continuing our discussion on the topic of making of the Constitution of India. So basically we are discussing about the body Constituent Assembly in greater detail. Please do check the earlier video because this is part 2 in the series. All the links are also given in the description section of the video, and please like, comment, share and subscribe if you feel the videos are helpful to you. Starting with the objective resolution. So the major heading that we are covering right now is the working of the Constituent Assembly. And we have understood that how was the demand put forward to have a body like a Constituent Assembly to frame the Constitution of India. And then we have also seen that what was the composition of that body, right? Now, when we talk about the working, we understand that when the first meeting took place, who was the president, etc. Now we have discussed about this term, or let's say just mentioned about this term, which is objective resolution. Resolution, if you understand, you can consider, let's say, some formal proposal kind of a thing. So formally it was proposed, and objectives is about what the members of the Constituent Assembly wanted, to have the objectives for the constitution that they wanted to draft. So a resolution or a proposal which would mention the objectives of the having the constitution, something like that, okay, was the meaning that you can understand from this point. Now, agar within the objective resolution, if you try and see the details of it, so firstly it was moved on this date, 13th of December 1946 by Jawaharlal Nehru in the Constituent Assembly. It contained the fundamentals and philosophy of the constitutional structure, that what kind of structure will we have, और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की फ़िलासफ़ी क्या होगी, बेसिक्स क्या होगा, फंडामेंटल्स क्या होंगे, etc. Now, because it had everything that the members also wanted, the other members also wanted, so on 22nd of January 1947, it was unanimously, which means everybody consented to it, adopted by the Constituent Assembly. A very important fact to be remembered for your prelims is that it is this objective resolution, the modified version of which is the present day preamble of the Constitution of India. तो आज जो भी टेक्स्ट आप preamble में देखते हो, उसका जो बैकग्राउंड है, it has been derived from the objectives resolution. If you know the text of the preamble even slightly, and you don't have to worry because we have a topic it in detail, वो हम आगे करेंगे, but even if you know it thoda sa bhi, you would know the keywords of that, and when you see the objectives resolution detail, you will automatically understand. Let's try and understand the objective resolutions के जो pointers थे. What was the first pointer? It was said that Constituent Assembly talks about resolving, you can say proclaiming or having a resolve to proclaim India as independent, sovereign republic, and to draw a constitution for future governance. That it is this body, which is Constituent Assembly, which resolves to do this. Which wants to do this, and wants to do what? To proclaim India. Proclaim India as what? As an independent nation, sovereign nation, and republic nation. And these are the words that you anyways find in the preamble also. Then next is Union of India would consist of the territories of British India and the Indian states. Indian state means Indian princely states. So the British provinces and the princely states, all of that would constitute the Union of India. And it will also constitute the parts outside India which are willing to be constituted into independent sovereign India. तो ऐसे सारे पार्ट्स जो कि इंडिया का हिस्सा बनना चाहेंगे, उनको भी इंडिया शामिल करेगा, and it will be called as Union of India. Constituent Assembly to determine these territories and according to law of the Constitution shall possess and retain the status of autonomous units. तो Constituent Assembly determine करेगी कि ये सारी territories जो हैं इनको हम हिस्सा मानेंगे या नहीं मानेंगे, and then according to law जो Constitution कहेगा, they will decide कि हम उनको autonomous units का status देंगे, together with the residuary powers. जो उनके अपने powers हैं वो भी उनको मिलेंगे, and also the powers, exercising that power will be vested by the union government. वो सारे power जो है वो grant करेगी. All the powers and the authority, now this is a very very important point, is going to be derived from people. ऐसा objective resolution का कहना था. This is not your or, this is not for the optional or, this is shorter form for objectives resolution. Okay, now understand this. We have just seen that it is the modified version of the preamble of India. And you know that our preamble starts with the same point, we, comma, the people of India. So that is what it says, that the power is derived from the people, and this is what the objective resolution also wanted to. Also, the objective resolutions talked about guaranteeing and securing to all the people of India. What all things? Justice, social, economic, political, equality of status, opportunity, equality before the law, freedom, thoughts, expression, belief, faith, worship, vocation, which means any job that you want to take up, association, action, etc. Subject to law and public morality. No focus on these points. Many of these points you are anyway seeing in the preamble. And a couple of those things that you don't get in the preamble, you see that in the fundamental rights. ठीक है, वहीं से ये सारी मतलब इन्हीं से वो सारी चीज़ें derive हुई हैं. And in the fundamental rights also, when you will see the article 19 of the constitution, which is आपका freedom related rights का पूरा set है 6 rights का, उसमें भी reasonable restrictions होते हैं, that despite of that, you know, okay, we are allowing people to have certain freedom, हमें at times because of certain important reasons restrictions लगाने पड़ सकते हैं. So this is a hint to that, that even if we are giving, let's say, all these freedom etc, that will be subjected to law, कि law के beyond जाके वो नहीं मिलेगा. And public morality, कि कोई चीज़ जो public morality के लिए अगर गलत हो रही है और वो आपके freedom में count होती है तो भी हम उस पर ध्यान नहीं देंगे, because this matters. Adequate safeguards to be provided for the minorities, so we have that in the constitution also. Backward and tribal areas, depressed and other backward classes, so we have the provisions, example reservation etc. Then another point is maintaining integrity of territory of republic and its sovereign rights on land, sea, air according to justice and also law of the civilized nations. Okay? And this ancient land attains its rightful and honored place in the world. So this is one thing that they aspire for, or the objective resolution was aspiring for, that in the world we should have our name and we should get that rightful and honored place which we deserve, and makes its full and willing contribution to the promotion of world peace and also welfare of mankind, because they wanted to now be independent, है ना, proclaim India as independent. अब बहुत हो गया colonial rule, अब हमें independence चाहिए और हम दुनिया में अपनी जगह बनाना चाहते हैं, हम जो deserve करते हैं we should get that, and in the return we will also try our best to give our full contribution in the promotion of world peace and also for the welfare of mankind. Now, in this objective resolution, certain changes were made by Indian Independence Act 1947. Let's see those things. So, firstly, the princely states. If you remember, in the beginning when we have seen about the composition, then we saw that the princely states, despite of having 93 seats reserved for them, they were not filled. They did not join initially, right? But because of the Indian Independence Act 1947, the changes that were made, in that one thing happened, that there was gradual joining of the Constituent Assembly by the representatives of princely states also. Then members of Muslim League from Indian Dominion also entered the Constituent Assembly. So initially even they did not participate, later they joined. And 3 major changes happened. First, the Constituent Assembly now talked about being a fully sovereign body, that this is going to be a fully sovereign body. Sovereign means which will not accept any external interference. Any decision which is to be taken by the body, they will do it by themselves. And now it became the fully sovereign body without any external interference to frame any constitution. And even it can abrogate, which means kind of हटाना है या alter करना है, कुछ changes करने हैं, any law made by the British Parliament with respect to India. तो इंडिया के रिस्पेक्ट में ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट द्वारा बनाया हुआ कोई भी लॉ अगर आप हटाना चाहो या चेंज करना चाहो, अब इस बॉडी के पास अधिकार था. Constituent Assembly also now became a legislative body, very important, and they can ask you in the prelims that this became a legislative body by the provisions of which act. So that was about Indian Independence Act 1947. In history when you do this, this is the last act that you have to do and you will see all the details in that. So आपको घबराना नहीं है, ठीक है? It now became a legislative body. What is the meaning of a legislative body? A body which makes legislations, or let's say which makes laws. So now the Constituent Assembly is going to perform 2 separate functions. पहला तो एक था ही that it has to make the constitution or draft the provisions of the constitution. That was anyways there since the beginning. That is why it was formed only. But now it was that it will also make ordinary laws. क्योंकि उस टाइम तक we did not have elections ना, हम तो independent हुए नहीं थे. So हमारे जो normal general elections होते हैं that was not happening. Whatever elections was happening that was under the British rule. ठीक है, तो अब elections नहीं है तो how will you have the members of the legislative body? And if you don't have a legislative body, who will frame the laws? So you needed something. So therefore Constituent Assembly had to perform two separate functions. So what it started to do, how it started to manage two separate functions, it started to sit on separate days for different matters. Like, you know, on some day they will sit to make the laws, on some day they will sit to make the constitution. And therefore if somebody asks you which is the first parliament of free India, ठीक है, तो ये बेसिकली जो है डोमिनियन लेजिस्लेचर इसको माना जाएगा, क्योंकि हम रिपब्लिक जो है वो 1950 में हुए थे. उसके पहले तो हम सिर्फ आज़ाद हुए थे, कुछ कंट्रोल जो है वो ब्रिटिश का भी था. 1950 में हम रिपब्लिक हुए जब हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन इन्फोर्स हुआ. तो देयरफॉर दिस यू नीड टू रिमेंबर दैट फर्स्ट पार्लियामेंट एज अ जो एक्ट की वो आपकी कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली ही थी. आफ्टर जो हमारा जनरल इलेक्शन हुआ, ठीक है, 1951-52 में, तब हमारे पास एक इलेक्ट की हुई बॉडी आई. ऑल्सो अगर आप कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बॉडी की तरह बात करो, सो इफ़ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली वॉज सिटिंग एज अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बॉडी विच मीन्स टू मेक द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन, द चेयरमैन वॉज डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद. इफ़ इट सैट एज अ लेजिस्लेटिव बॉडी टू मेक द लॉज, द चेयरमैन वॉज GV मावलंकर. तो ये दो आपको ध्यान रखना है. एंड दे कंटिन्यूड लाइक दिस till 26th of November 1949. Why? Because our constitution making and signing and everything was done on this date, right? Making was done and enforcement था January 1950 में. So we will talk on this later. And first time when it sat as a legislative body, that was November 17, 1947. So after independence. Okay. Third change that happened from this act was that the Muslim League members, I mean from those areas which were now in Pakistan, क्योंकि partition के बाद, so they withdrew from the Constituent Assembly. That is obvious, ठीक है, क्योंकि अब partition हो चुका था. तो what kind of areas were in Pakistan? Like West Punjab, East Bengal, NWFP, North West Frontier Province, Sindh, Balochistan and Sylhet region of Assam. And separate Constituent Assembly now existed for Pakistan also. So total strength, now what will it be? Some members came, some went, so all of that readjustments. Earlier it was 389, now it became 299. ठीक है, जिसमें 229 were from the Indian provinces, 70 from the princely states, and of course cabinet mission plan से जो initially I have shown you the number, that was 389. Let's see some of the other functions. So two major functions तो we have seen, constitution making and law making. What were some of the other functions which were done by the Constituent Assembly along with enactment of ordinary laws and constitution making? Firstly, they ratified India's membership of Commonwealth in May 1949. कि इंडिया कॉमनवेल्थ की मेंबर रहेगी, they decided to continue like that. तो उसमें अपना कंसेंट दे दिया. Adoption of national flag 22nd of July 1947. Adoption of national anthem 24th of January 1950. Adoption of national song 24th of January 1950. So you need to remember this date. This happened on the same day, both national anthem and song, and this is just 2 days before our Republic Day. तो आपको याद रखना आसान होगा, ठीक है. Also, election of Dr. Rajendra Prasad happened as the first president of India on 24th of January 1950, the same day. Total number of sessions that the Constituent Assembly sat for, 11 sessions across the period of 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. Roughly जिसको हम 3 years बोल सकते हैं. Makers, even, you know, from they borrowed the different, you would say, provisions etc. from 60 countries constitution. You know, they read it and try to derive the materials from that. However, in conclusion जो निकले वो कुछ major countries से, कुछ ही sources जो आप पढ़ते हो, लेकिन different countries से इन्होंने लेने की कोशिश की. And drafting of the constitution took somewhere around 114 days. Although all of these details are not that to be remembered, just remember this one, that will be okay. The last session happened on 24th of January 1950, but continued as Provisional Parliament of India from 26th of January till the formation of new parliament after first general election 1951-52, which I have just said you above. Constituent Assembly did not end. This you need to remember. Prelims में they can give you this one line. तो you might also feel कि independent हो गए थे, उसके बाद तो assembly ख़त्म ही हो गई होगी. बिल्कुल नहीं. उसके बाद it continued as a legislative body. इनका constitution making का काम जनवरी में ख़त्म हो गया था, जनवरी 1950. But they continued as a legislative body till the elections happened for the first time in independent India. End of provisional parliament. Provisional is something temporary, you can say. So end of provisional parliament happened on 17th of April 1952, and the first elected parliament, which is now your Lok Sabha plus Rajya Sabha, that sat in May 1952. Okay, so these are all the important timelines that you should remember. Now if we understand about the committees of the Constituent Assembly, so basically it had 8 major committees and some minor committees etc. also, but about it we'll talk later. So the 8 major committees. Now what I have done is not to give you the names like, committee name and then the person's name or who was chairing. I have reversed it. I have given you the names of the people who were chairing and then the committees associated with them, so that it helps you in reverse remembering. Otherwise you tend to get confused. So for the time being, when we talk about, let's say, Jawaharlal Nehru, so we can remember that okay, he was chairing Union Powers Committee, Union Constitution Committee and States Committee, ताकि स्टेट्स के साथ नेगोशिएट किया जा सके. डॉक्टर राजेंद्र प्रसाद was chairing Rules of Procedure Committee and Steering Committee. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was chairing Drafting Committee, very important one about which we'll see details also. And Sardar Patel was chairing Provincial Constitutional Committee and Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities and Tribal and Excluded Areas, which makes it 8 of the committees. Okay? So these are the major ones only. Now this committee, Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities, Tribal and Excluded Areas, had 5 subcommittees. Different people took charge of that. For example, Fundamental Rights was being handled by J.B. Kripalani. आपका नॉर्थ वेस्ट जो फ्रंटियर में ट्राइबल एरियाज़ है, यहाँ पर चेयरमैन की ऐसे कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं है. माइनॉरिटीज़ कमिटी, द सब वन, was handled by or chaired by H.C. Mukherjee. Northeastern frontier tribal areas and Assam excluded and partially excluded region, Gopinath Bardoloi. Excluded and partially excluded areas other than Assam, A.V. Thakkar. So even if you do not remember this, that would be okay, but I would say these 8 major committees you should remember. So in the next class we'll continue talking about more on the committees, what other kinds of committees were there, and a couple of tidbits, I would say, the factual informations which will holistically cover your topic of making of the constitution. I hope the session was of use to you. Thank you so much, guys. Take care till then, and please watch the other videos also. Bye bye, take care.